Well, they'll stone you when you're trying to be so good. They'll stone you just like they said they would. They'll stone you when you're walking on the street. They'll stone you when you're trying to keep your seat. They'll stone you when you're trying to make a buck. They'll stone you and then they'll say good luck. They'll stone you when you're riding in your car. They'll stone you when you're playing your guitar. But I would not feel so all alone. Everybody must get stoned.
Senator Kevin Blackwell on the Senate floor yesterday, of course, changing the words up a little bit to the famous Bob Dylan tune from the 60s, I think it was. If he could, that's pretty good, pretty creative on the part of the senator. Would have loved to heard it with a little bit more of the Bob Dylan kind of tone.
The twang,
the twang through the nose there. That'd be awesome. Perfect intro for us on hour 2 of Middays on this Friday. Gerard Gibbert, Will East in the SuperTalk studios. Joining us now, Representative Lee Yancey. He serves District 74. That's Rankin County. And let's see, Lee, is it the Drug Committee specifically is what it's called?
The Drug Policy Committee.
Drug Policy Committee. The Drug Committee, pardon me on that. All right, so the thing passed the Senate yesterday. That broke right before we went off the air during middays yesterday. Rhino and I were watching the proceedings live from the Senate broadcast video feed of that. And so it came down. What was the vote?
I think there were 5 against. So if there are 52 members, my math was 47-5.
Yeah. All right. So 47-5. The bill passes. And I guess the most notable aspect of the bill in terms of how it differs from Initiative 65, and I'll let you talk about this, but the one that I think was intended to address the governor's concerns was the amount that a person who would be certified to purchase medical marijuana could acquire in a month. Initiative 65 called for 5 ounces, and the bill amended that to be 3.5. Is that correct?
Correct. We had already amended it to be 4 ounces a month, and so we just reduced it at 1 more half ounce.
Okay.
So 3.5 grams is still the daily unit for smokable flower.
Grams.
3.5.
Yeah, not to confuse with the 3.5 ounces per month. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah, 3.5 grams per day. Yeah.
So 3.5 grams is an eighth of an ounce.
Okay.
So we're working on the eighth. Still working on the eighths. That's an industry standard. And we were allowing 8 units per week, and we reduced that to 7 units per week. So basically, you're getting 1 unit per day now instead of just a little bit over 1 unit per day.
Okay.
And so that comes out to be, I think, 0.875 ounces per week, which is 3.5 ounces per 4-week period. So we have reduced the amount, just to try to move in the direction the governor asked us to move into, and we're trying to all work together and sing Kumbaya and get this done.
What do you think now? Comes over to the House? You think it will pass as is? What do you expect?
I expect there to be spirited debate. I expect there to be amendments offered and possibly in committee as well as on the floor. It was an educational experience for me to sit in the Senate committee the other day and hear the types of questions that were asked of Senator Blackwell. And, and it helped me to form in my mind how I would answer those questions. And some of those I had anticipated, and some of those caused me to think a little bit, and that was good. Stretched me a little bit and helps me to be more prepared. And then I listened to the debate on the Senate floor on my phone, and then I got there towards the end of the debate, and I was on the floor when it did pass. And so I was able to hear many of those arguments as well, and all of which makes me better prepared to handle this on the House floor.
Yeah. Now, we should also clarify, because you and I have discussed this somewhat offline. You've spent some time more than some time over the last several months since the debate has continued and endured on this. You've spent some time learning and investigating other states' programs.
Correct.
As input and to gain knowledge and understand what works, what's not. What did you learn through that, Did you talk to any states or any representatives from states that said, if we had it to do all over again, we wouldn't have done this or we would have done that?
Often we're compared to Oklahoma and some of the problems that they're having, and I would just like to make some comparisons. Oklahoma allows 8 ounces per month. We're talking about allowing 3.5 ounces per month.
Okay.
Oklahoma has just now installed a seed-to-sale tracking program from 2018 to 2021. They didn't know how much they were growing, how much was being produced, how much was going out the back door. They had no idea.
So we should point out before you go further, that is required in our bill.
That's required in the bill. The marijuana that's grown is going to be tracked from the time it's planted until the time that it's sold at a dispensary or destroyed, depending on whether or not it needs to be destroyed for whatever reason, whatever part of the plant, so that it has this number assigned to it from the beginning that follows it all through the growth process, all through the processing, the packaging, into the product, so that let's say there's a problem with a batch, and there's a batch that has fungus in it or something, and they'll be able to pull every product that was made from a particular plant and trace it back to where it was grown so that problem can be addressed. And, of course, that shouldn't happen because we have a thorough testing process along the way that looks for these kinds of deficiencies in the plant and the product to pull them and have them disposed of properly along the way. But it also helps if law enforcement stops someone and they have obviously over the amount of allowable medical cannabis, they can look at that product and they can trace it back to where it was grown, where it was processed, what dispensary it was sold to, and who it was sold to.
Yeah.
And they can go back and follow that chain of possession and figure out where it went from legal to illegal.
Yeah.
And so it's a great way to keep up with it. Oklahoma did not have that until this year. They finally got smart. So they're allowing 8 ounces a month. We're allowing 3.5. They allow home grow in Oklahoma. We're not. They allow people to grow marijuana in their homes. And, maybe if a state was a recreational adult use, but there's really no way to regulate that. There's no way to keep up with who's doing it legally, who's got a license, who doesn't have a license. Oklahoma allows outdoor growth. That's hard to regulate as well. And we're talking about a medical product that needs to be grown so that, for instance, if you grow outside, you're probably in Mississippi going to get 1 crop per year, depending on how the weather is.
Yeah.
Okay, if you grow it indoors, you can sort of fool the plant and you put it in a dark room and use bright lights, and have it so that the plant thinks it's nighttime before it actually is, and then it flowers before it would if it were outside.
Like a traditional hothouse.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you get 3 to 4 crops a year. So even if we allowed outdoor grow, the indoor grows would put the outdoor grows out of business on volume alone, particularly if there was a bad year where where there was a drought or there was a hurricane. Oklahoma allows outdoor grow, indoor grow, home grow. We're simply indoor grow. Their licenses were only $2,500 to do any of it in Oklahoma. We have some licenses that are based on square footage, and it requires quite a commitment to get in the medical cannabis business. But we have also put in some categories so the average person could get in it as well. So we've tried to say from the least to the greatest. You could build a facility as large as a super Walmart if you're willing to pay for the license.
Yeah.
But you can get in and have a facility under 1,000 square feet and start out for $3,500. You could have your license for the first year, and then $2,000 for every year after that. So we've worked hard to try to make this something that could be accessible to not only the patient but also to the business side of it for people to get involved in it, and put all kinds of safeguards in there so that we could have a program that didn't have the kinds of problems that we've seen in some of the other states. Oklahoma decriminalized up to 1.5 ounces, and we didn't. We have enhanced penalties on our program. If you break the law, you're participating in our program and you break the law in some way, not only is there a penalty for that, but it's added to the penalty that already exists for marijuana. So we're trying to build a strong fence around this and make sure it's only available for those who have these debilitating conditions. We're putting a program in place for people with cancer and multiple sclerosis and ALS and on and on and on, but people who have genuine debilitating illnesses who need the relief that medical cannabis can provide, and give doctors an alternative to opioids for prescribing to these people to relieve them of their pain.
Yeah, and we should talk about, when we come back after the break, just the process by which a patient follows in order to receive certification to acquire medical marijuana. And then I got more questions for you as well. Appreciate you coming in here today. Representative Lee Yancey is our guest. We're talking about the medical marijuana bill that passed the Mississippi Senate yesterday. Middays will come right back. Yes. Malcolm from Tishomingo County asked, how did Senator Daniel Sparks vote on the marijuana bill? I do not think he was amongst the 5 that voted against it.
I think he voted in favor, I think.
Yeah, I think that's right as well. We'll see if we can verify that, but I think the folks that opposed it and voted against it did not include Senator Sparks. He supported it. So there's another question here. James in Hattiesburg regarding the tracking. Will the marijuana come in a pill dispenser type bottle with a barcode on it? How's the tracking systems work? And this isn't anything that the state of Mississippi is inventing here. These systems are widely used in place.
Sure. Well, the Department of Health has come out with all the regulations, but what I've seen in other states is everything comes in a child-proof container, that has the label on it that says how much THC is in the product and what the weight of the product is, and there's a warning label on there as well. And if it's higher than a certain THC level, it's got to say this is extremely potent.
Yeah.
Nothing on the label can be geared towards children. Nothing. There's all of the edibles have to be in geometric shapes, and they can't be in the shape of a gummy bear or anything like that, or a heart. It's got to be just a triangle, square, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's and
yeah. All right. So did you actually talk to officials from Oklahoma? Just to kind of want to.
I did.
All right. And did they tell you, man, I sure do wish we would have implemented, for example, a seed to sale tracking system. I wish we would not have allowed 8 ounces.
They want they want good press. They don't want bad press.
Yeah, and they've gotten a lot of bad press.
And basically, they were operating within the legal framework which they were given.
Yeah.
And so, the legislators in Oklahoma are now, trying to get it fixed.
Okay. All right. But there are other states that I assume that you had discussions with that said they were pleased with their situation.
And there are states that have done it right. And, we looked at other states' programs, and we took different parts of bills from different parts of other states. Like, for instance, we used Missouri's medical cannabis unit to come up with our medical cannabis unit, which was the allowable unit was 3.5 grams of flour or 1 gram of concentrate or 100 milligrams in an infused product. That's your edibles.
Yeah.
And, we thought that was a good way to go, and Missouri did that. So did several other states, and I knew that if I could understand that particular formula, then I could understand this bill.
Yeah.
So I really, drilled down and tried to figure that out. What does this actually mean? What is 1 gram of concentrate? And basically, when they are making these concentrated products, they can do it mechanically or they can do it chemically. Mechanically, they can just squeeze it so that the juice comes out of the plant, and then when they apply heat to it and dry it, the powder that's left is a concentrated form of the THC that's more potent than just the flour. And so we're allowing less of that than we are of just the smokable flour.
I got you.
Or you can extract it chemically by using a solvent where you can use CO2 or you can use butane or propane. I think Ole Miss uses hexane to do theirs, where you're stripping the product down and then you basically evaporate away the solvent, and what you have left is the concentrated product there. And then when you put it into a food product, there are other, it's basically a chemistry lab that's going to be set up in these processing plants to extract the THC to make these products, whether they are hand creams or whether they're lotions or they're tinctures, they're drops that go under your tongue, or it's a transdermal patch or a suppository, or, you name it. If it's a nebulizer or a vape cartridge, There are so many different delivery systems for medical cannabis and every drug, really. But those are things I didn't know and had to learn about through the process.
That's gets a little into the weeds, no
Gets
pun
into the
intended,
weeds, yeah.
shall we say.
There you go.
Okay, pun intended. Got you to laugh.
We've been hashing it out for a while.
Wah, 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 wah.
Bum.
You going to be here all week?
Yeah.
All right, so this thing is now headed to the House.
It is.
Yeah, and you. So what's the procedure there?
So the procedure yesterday, the bill in the Senate was held on a motion to reconsider, so that if there are any, as many ayes there are going to be on this bill over the weekend, if there's a typo or there's a place where 60 days was supposed to be changed to 120 days in 5 places, but we only changed it in 4, somebody would catch it. They're trying to get all of these technical things looked at. And so the Senate was not in session. They went home yesterday. So Monday when they get back, they'll table a motion to reconsider, which will then send the bill to the Speaker. The Speaker will get the bill probably on Tuesday, at which time he will begin the process of assigning it to a committee. I believe that's going to be the Drug Policy Committee, the committee that I chair. And then once he assigns that to my committee, I will call a committee meeting, and we will take it up in committee, and assuming we pass it in committee, then we'll be on the calendar to be dealt with on the floor of the House.
Okay. What's your expectation there?
My expectation is that it will pass the committee meeting. It will pass out of committee. It will go to the floor of the House, and my expectation is that it will pass. And if it passes exactly as it is now, it'll go straight to the governor. If we make a change or two, it'll go back to the Senate. And so we will work it out until we get it in a way that both sides are comfortable.
What do you think the governor's going to do?
I think the governor's going to do what he's going to do. I mean, I'm not going to predict. He's got 3 options, and 2 of them allow the bill to pass. And so I think he's been concerned about the amount that we were allowing, and there's a good segment of our state that's concerned about the amount that's allowed and has concerns. And we all have concerns, and that's why we were putting all these safeguards in the bill. And so just trying to proceed with caution. And, I think that he's probably going to allow it to become law. I don't know if he'll sign it or not, but I do think he'll allow it to become law.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's going to be interesting. All right, let's talk about the procedure that a person, let's say this thing gets through the House, gets signed by the governor, goes into law. When would it take effect?
So it takes effect immediately.
Okay.
There's a time frame that's instituted once it becomes law. There's a lot of things that happen, but the way that a person would be able to qualify for it is, they would have to go to their practitioner, whether that's a doctor or nurse practitioner or physician's assistant or optometrist in the case of glaucoma. They would have to have a face-to-face visit with this practitioner. This would have to be a practitioner with whom they have a bona fide relationship with. This is a definition that we've included in the bill. A bona fide relationship means that they've seen this doctor. This doctor's been treating them, before this time, for this illness. They have tried other things that are not working, and the practitioner believes that the person having this condition may be a candidate for medical cannabis, and so they would fill out a certification that said this person has a debilitating illness, and then the person would take that certification and go to the Department of Health and show that their practitioner has recommended them to participate in the medical cannabis program. The Department of Health has 30 days to say yes or no to the person who is applying.
Oh, really?
And once they apply, they've got 5 days. Once they approve them, they've got 5 days to issue the card.
Okay.
So there's definite periods that require action to be taken.
So the Department of Health has to sign off on a practitioner's certification.
And Gerard, I may I think I may be getting that confused with the licensure process for the facilities.
Okay.
I think once you get the certification from the practitioner, then they issue the card within 30 days.
But Department of Health licenses a practitioner for certifying a patient.
That's right. And
I think that makes sense.
I'm sorry,
no
I
problem.
got confused there. Stepped on my tongue.
No problem.
But anyway, once they get that card, they then go to a dispensary, and this is going to take a minute. So
yeah, we'll come back. You hear the music? That means we got a break coming. We got some questions I want to get to, including a question about the debilitating conditions that qualify for certification. We'll go through that and talk about some of the safeguards we have in this kind of certification process.
Okay.
You've told us a little bit about that. We'll get into that more when we come back on Middays. We've got Representative Lee Yancey in the studio. Stay with us. Watching that. Anyhow, we digress a little bit, talking about music. I always like to do that and have a little fun here on Middays. Just wanted to pass this on before we dig back into it here. Representative Yancey, the nay votes in the Senate, Senators Branning, Chisholm, Hill, Johnson, and Tate. That is what the Mississippi legislature site is reporting. Just looked at that. Just wanted to pass that on. There's another text here on the C Spire text line that says the ballot didn't have a no vote, so we had to vote for 65 or 65A. It was rigged from the beginning. That's actually false. If you voted for the measure, there were two-part question, two questions. First question, yes or no, do you support in general a medical marijuana program? And then the second question was, which one of these programs would you support, 65 or the alternative offered by the legislature? So you had an opportunity to vote no and to vote against the implementation of a program. It wasn't...
Gerard, what I remember, and I could be wrong,
What's that?
But it seems like the first question, do you want a medical marijuana program? And 62% of the state said, yes, I want a marijuana program. And then the second question was, do you want 65 or 65A?
Right.
And so what we had was about 58% checked that they wanted 65. Then almost 21% checked they wanted 65A.
Right.
And then there were 21% who did not vote at all. I would sort of say those were the no's. And then there was another 1,000 people who wanted both programs. So those are the ones I'm really worried about. But I think that's kind of how it shook out. And so of the top two choices of 65 or 65A, where you had 58 to 21, which made 79%, 58 of 79 is 74%. And so that's where they get to 74%.
Yeah, I just want to point out that voters did have the opportunity to vote against a program.
Sure. Well, the first question was your opportunity to vote
yes or no. Yeah. So it wasn't in that, hey, the deal was already a done deal.
It was like, do you want a program, yes or no? And so if you did want a program, did you want 65 or 65A?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's how the ballot was structured. And it look, in fairness to the audience, it was confusing, but it was done and presented in accordance with law, with statute. And so that's a whole other topic of what are we going to do about the ballot initiative process. All right, so just wanted to clarify, though, some safeguards that you feel are in place that prevents a person just from randomly walking off the street into a practitioner's office, doctor, optometrist, nurse practitioner, and say, hey, I want medical marijuana certification. Just go ahead and give it to me. So
first of all, practitioners have to be licensed by the Department of Health to recommend people for medical marijuana cards, and this is a certification that they have to get every year, I believe, and the Department of Health is responsible for licensing.
So it's not permanent.
Practitioners.
Every year.
It's not permanent.
Okay.
And they have to have 8 hours of CE credit, if you will. They have to take this course from the Department of Health about cannabis. Before they can begin certifying people, and then every year after that, they have to have 5 hours of CE credit. Because basically, no one really knows about how to recommend what medical cannabis can be used for in the medical field now, based on anything they've done in the past. Currently, it's not being taught.
Yeah.
I've talked with the Department of Pharmacy at University of Mississippi Medical Center, and they're looking forward to adding it to their curriculum and learning about what's been going on. And that's what we've really lacked in this field, is the research of what particular types of cannabis and in what dosages affect certain debilitating illnesses, and what is the best way to prescribe this? And you're not really supposed to use the word prescribe because it's still Schedule 1, so to certify this. But these practitioners have to be certified by the Department of Health. Now, the bill also says there's nothing in here that requires any practitioner to recommend someone for a medical marijuana card. So they don't have to recommend you if you go see them. You've got to have a bona fide relationship with them. So you can't just walk up to a practitioner and say, hey, I want some marijuana, give me a card. They're not going to do that. And they're going to be held accountable by their licensing agency and also by the Department of Health. So they don't have to do that. So, but once a person does get that medical marijuana card, because they've been certified as having one of those debilitating illnesses, as we said before, cancer, multiple sclerosis, ALS, muscular dystrophy,
22
spastic
ailments.
quadriplegia, ulcerative colitis. I mean, these are all really bad things that you don't want to have. You're not faking these things. We did put chronic pain in there, but we put the definition of chronic pain as supplied to us by the Board of Medical Licensure. This is pain that has been treated over and over and over, and there's been no remedy for this pain, and there is no remedy for this pain. It's not going away. And, you have to have a history of having had this problem and having been treated for it and not having any other recourse. So, but once you get your card, you would go to the dispensary. The dispensary is the only one of our facilities where the public has access. Okay, they're going into the dispensary. They walk in, and I try to explain this. It's like you're walking to a movie theater. The first thing you do is you walk up to the window and get your ticket. So you walk up to the window of the dispensary once you go inside the door, and you give them your medical marijuana card, and you give them your driver's license. And they run your card, and they compare your card with your driver's license to confirm your identity. And when they run your card, it's called our verification system. It's going to verify that you are who you say you are, that your card is valid, and it's going to say how much medical marijuana you have already purchased this week or this month. And so there's a limit that you are allowed to have, and so they keep up with that. And
it's measured by month, right? Month, not day, month.
Well, you can only buy so much per week also.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can't get the whole month
weekly
supply
limitations,
at once.
monthly.
That's right.
Okay.
And so and then every day the dispensary has to report all of the sales to the Pharmacy Prescription Monitoring Program, the PMP, which is the same thing they do with narcotics in regular pharmacies. We can't use regular pharmacies in this program because they're regulated by the DEA, and marijuana is a Schedule I drug on the federal level, so you can't sell marijuana in a pharmacy. And I keep hearing people say it ought to be sold in a pharmacy like everything else. Well, it can't be because it's Schedule I. And until the federal government does something about that, the states have had to find a way to get around that. Now, you could put a pharmacist in the dispensary, but you're going to have to pay a pharmacist. And pharmacists make about $120,000 plus benefits. You're going to need more than one pharmacist in every dispensary. I'm thinking you're going to need 3 or 4. So it could be another $500,000 cost to a startup business in a startup industry, which we felt like was very difficult. There are 1 or 2 states that do that. There are pharmacists in Mississippi who are getting in the medical cannabis business who are opening dispensaries. And if you would like to go to a dispensary that has a pharmacist, there will be those available because they are getting in the business.
That's a separate entity and facility than
but it's not the drugstore.
The DEA
it is a medical
pharmacy.
Marijuana dispensary. So once you go there and they check your card, they verify that you are supposed to be there, that you are who you say you are, that you have a debilitating illness, and that you have an allowable amount still left on your card. You then go into a waiting room. You stay in that waiting room until someone from the dispensary comes and gets you, and this person's going to be with you the entire time you're in the dispensary. When they take you in, I like to describe it as being in a jewelry store where you can see all of the merchandise, but you can't touch it. It's under glass. It's behind, some of it's on top of the counter, so I guess you could touch that. But you have to have help getting what you need, and the people that work at the dispensary are required to have 8 hours of training as well, the same as the practitioner each year. And then 5 years for every year after that. 5 hours every year after that for continuing education as well. And so, That's the way it's set up.
Okay.
We would be the 38th state, I believe. I think Alabama was 37. We're 38. That's the way that it's set up in the vast majority of states, 35, 36 other states. That's the way that it's working there. And they would recommend to you all of the different means of, using medical cannabis based on what your condition is and your age is and your medical experience. Yes.
All right, we got a break. Can you hang? I got 2 questions for you.
Man, I'm hanging.
All right, we got Representative Lee Yancey. We appreciate that, too. Lots of questions rolling in, but 2 I think that a lot of folks want to know about concerning concealed carry of weapons. And then also what happens if your physician that's been your attending physician is not in the program and you got to go, you want to get medical marijuana. Think about that. So the representative and I were just doing some high-level math here off the air, converting grams to ounces and daily amounts and weekly, lots of questions.
Did you ever think in your life?
No.
I didn't think I would ever be in this spot. I really didn't.
No. And nor did I think I'd be here talking about this on statewide radio. But it is technical in a lot of respects. And there's a question, and you make a good point, and I can tell by the questions here on the C Spire text line. Gee, I've been thinking all along it was 3.5 grams. And the 3.5 gram figure was reflective of the amount per day when it was a 5-ounce program. Is that correct? Or a 4-ounce program per month?
So when it was a 4-ounce program, because that's when I came along.
Yep.
So 3.5 grams is the daily unit.
To work out to 4 ounces per month.
And it's 1/8 of an ounce. And so what we were allowing was 8 of those units, 8 times 3.5, to be 28 grams. Excuse me.
That's right.
28 grams,
which is an ounce.
Which is an ounce.
Yep.
And so we were allowing 1 ounce a week.
Yep.
And for a 4-week period, we were allowing 4 ounces a month.
Yeah, makes sense.
And so we've reduced the 4 ounces a month to 3.5 ounces a month. And so what's happened is we still have the 3.5 grams for flowers as a daily unit, but for a 7-day period, no longer are we allowing 8 units. We're only allowing 7, which is 0.875 ounces. And say that times 4, and you come up with your 3.5 ounces per month.
Yeah, 7/8 a week.
So, I'm not good. I'm not a very good cook, and when it tells me to do teaspoons and tablespoons, I know 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. That's about all I know. But you really have to get into the details of these measurements to understand really what we're talking about.
Yeah. So there are questions about concealed carry and firearms, et cetera. What's in the bill with respect to that?
And so what I would say about that, as long as marijuana is Schedule 1 at the federal level and the states continue to make exceptions to that for medical purposes or for adult use purposes, there are always going to be conflicts between state law and federal law. You have that with the banking system. You have that with the pharmacies. You have that with the different laws so that you can still enforce some marijuana laws that are outside the scope of our act, but you don't enforce those who are using it for medical purposes who have less than the allowable amount.
Yep.
And when it comes to firearms, if you go to buy a firearm, you will be given a form to fill out. And one of the questions on that form is, do you basically use drugs, or have you broken any federal laws? And, if you answer truthfully and say that you have a medical marijuana card, then they're not going to sell you a firearm. It doesn't prevent you from keeping the firearms that you do have, but what the federal government has done with regard to medical marijuana is in 2012, I believe, during the Obama administration, the Justice Department issued some type of statement saying that as long as states were in compliance, as long as people were in compliance with state laws with regard to cannabis, then they were not going to prosecute.
Okay.
And that's been on the books for 10 years, and we would be the 38th state. And so, we've made exceptions. We made allowances. We put the language in the bill to give us whatever protections we could give from a state level for gun owners. We put protections in the bill for banks that the Banking Association provided to us. We have put everything in place that can be put into place.
Okay.
And again, there will continue to be conflicts with regard to laws between state and federal until they change it from Schedule 1.
What about public sector, state employees, public agency employees, teachers, school district employees, et cetera? Any special provisions that would apply to them with respect to this? Or accommodations?
As far as having a medical marijuana card? Or
yeah,
what?
I mean, I would think if they're certified.
Well, I mean, under our employment law, if you show up at work and you are tested and you test positive, you can be fired, no matter who you are.
At the discretion of the employer.
At the discretion of the employer.
They have the
That's
right.
right.
So they have the right to
Certainly.
essentially establish their restrictions.
Right.
I guess the question is, to what extent might that conflict with this? But we had the same at my company, even in Colorado where recreational was legal. We tested as well. So anyhow, Representative Yancey, appreciate it. Very informative discussion, sir. We'll be keeping up with what goes on over there in the House on this matter, and I'm sure you'll be back and we'll talk
Gerard,
about it.
it's